Many women don't know this. Very wise advice from a 72-year-old woman. Did you know that most men over 50 make one critical mistake in relationships that unknowingly pushes women away? Or have you ever wondered why some men keep the warmth alive in their relationships, while others struggle to connect emotionally with their partner? There's a secret to lasting love that most people never talk about. A secret so powerful that it can reignite warmth in your relationship, even if you think it's too late. The truth is, love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about something much deeper, something that many men overlook as the years pass. And when they do, they find themselves in relationships that feel more like routines than romance. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn isn't just advice, it's a revelation that could transform your love life forever. Whether you've been married for decades, or you're just beginning to navigate love later in life, this wisdom will help you build deeper, more meaningful connections with the woman you cherish. If you've ever felt like your partner is emotionally distant, this story will help you understand why and how to fix it. And if this resonates with you, comment 1 below to let me know you're still with me. Let's get started. In a secluded village nestled between towering mountains and rivers that whisper forgotten stories, lived Grandma Amalia, a woman whose knowledge of love had healed countless hearts. People from distant lands sought her counsel, hoping to uncover the secrets of emotional closeness and connection. One day, a young woman named Clara set out on a journey to find her. With questions pressing on her heart and uncertainty clouding her mind, she traveled across valleys and bridges, driven by a relentless yearning to understand love's deepest truths. Her thoughts were filled with doubts. Was love supposed to change over time? Was emotional closeness meant to fade, or was there a way to keep it alive even after years together? She needed answers, and she had heard that Grandma Amalia was the only one who could provide them. The path was long, winding through quiet forests and across old stone bridges where the water below flowed as steadily as time itself. Each step she took carried the weight of unspoken worries, memories of love lost and love misunderstood. She thought about the couples she had seen, some who still held hands after decades together, others who sat in silence, disconnected and distant. What made the difference? Was it luck, or was there something more? When Clara arrived, she was welcomed by the warmth of a crackling fire in Grandma Amalia's modest yet inviting cottage. The elder woman, with eyes that held the wisdom of lifetimes, motioned for her to sit. The scent of dried herbs filled the air, and the gentle flicker of candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls. Clara felt an immediate sense of comfort, as if she had stepped into a place where answers had always existed, waiting to be discovered. Grandma Amalia studied Clara with a quiet smile, as if she already knew the questions before they had even been spoken. "You've come a long way, child," she said gently. "Tell me, what is it that troubles your heart?" After a moment of silence, Clara took a deep breath and asked, "Grandma Amalia, is it wrong to yearning deeper closeness in marriage, even in the quiet ways society rarely discusses?" A knowing smile graced the elder's lips. She studied Clara for a moment before responding, her voice as soothing as the fire's glow. "My dear, love is not bound by the rigid expectations of the world. True connection is not about obligation, nor is it something transactional. It is a sacred exchange, a language of the soul, woven with trust, warmth, and understanding." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes filled with the wisdom of decades. Too often, people mistake emotional closeness for a routine, something to be checked off a list. But real emotional closeness, the kind that keeps love alive, is not about following rules. It's about connection, about truly seeing and being seen. Clara listened intently, her hands folded in her lap. But what if one partner yearnings more than the other? What if fear or hesitation holds them back? Grandma Amalia nodded knowingly. That is where the beauty of love lies, my dear. It's not about demanding or expecting. It's about understanding. A relationship thrives when both partners feel safe enough to share their needs, fears, and longings without judgment. When a man and a woman are emotionally open with each other, emotional closeness deepens in ways that go beyond the surface level. She took a sip of her tea and continued. Many couples fall into the trap of assuming they already know everything about each other. But true emotional closeness isn't about knowing. It's about discovering. Every gesture, every exchange, every moment shared is an opportunity to nurture deeper emotional connection. Clara absorbed the words, realizing that perhaps the struggles in relationships didn't come from a lack of love, but from a lack of curiosity. She thought about the way couples drift apart, not because they stop loving each other, but because they stop exploring, stop asking, stop listening. Grandma Amalia placed a gentle hand on Clara's. Intimacy is not just about the presence. It is about the mind, the heart, the soul. If a couple stops growing together, the bond weakens. But if they continue to nurture each other's yearnings, to communicate openly, to embrace both the familiar and the unknown, then love will never feel stagnant. It will always be alive. Clara felt something shift inside her. She had come seeking answers, but what she found was an entirely new way of looking at love. It wasn't about what was right or wrong. It was about whether she and her future partner were willing to keep discovering each other no matter how many years had passed. Grandma Amalia paused, studying Clara's face. There's a lie that people have been told about love. They say warmth naturally fades with time. But that's not true. Passion doesn't fade, it changes. And those who understand this keep the flame alive. She leaned back, her gaze steady. Love in your 50s, 60s and beyond is different than it was in your 20s. But different doesn't mean worse. In fact, it can be deeper, richer, more fulfilling, if you know how to nurture it. The biggest mistake men make, she continued, is assuming that what worked before will work forever. A woman's needs evolve just as a man's do. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not learning, then one day you'll wake up and wonder where the connection went. The secret to lasting attraction isn't found in expensive gifts or extravagant trips. It's found in emotional connection. A woman doesn't crave a man's presence just because of how he looks or how successful he is. She craves him because of how he makes her feel. She wants to feel seen, understood, appreciated, not just for what she does, but for who she is. And when a man over 50 continues to nurture his partner's heart, not just her presence, emotional closeness thrives. It's not about youth, Grandma Amalia said with a soft smile. It's about presence. It's about looking at your partner and truly seeing them, as if for the first time. It's about listening to the words they don't say, about holding them in a way that makes them feel cherished, not just out of habit, but out of love. Clara thought about the couples she had known. Some still laughed together, still held hands in the grocery store, still whispered to each other when they thought no one was watching. Others had drifted into silence, more like roommates than lovers. The difference wasn't time, it was effort. It was the willingness to keep the connection alive, even when life got busy, even when routines took over. So, Clara asked, what can a man do to keep that connection strong? Grandma Amalia's eyes sparkled. He can start by being present, by making her feel like she is the most important person in the room, by never assuming he already knows everything about her, but instead continuing to learn her every single day. Grandma Amalia sighed gently before speaking. The biggest mistake men make in long-term relationships, she said, is assuming their partner feels loved just because they've been together for years. Love isn't automatic. It's something you choose every single day. She set her teacup down and continued. Men take their partners for granted without realizing it. They stop doing the little things that once made her smile. They let life get in the way of romance. They listen, but only halfway. And slowly, without meaning to, they let the emotional distance grow. She shook her head. But love isn't about grand gestures. It's about presence. The strongest emotional closeness isn't built in the bedroom. It's built in the way you show up every day. It's in the way you laugh together, in the small secrets you share, in the trust that says, I know you and I still choose you. She looked Clara in the eye. Women's yearnings shift as they age. They want emotional security over fleeting warmth. They need to feel seen, heard and valued, not just in words but in action. They long for deep companionship, the kind that feels like home. Clara nodded, understanding now that emotional closeness wasn't about chasing youth. It was about deepening love. And that, she realized, was something a man could do at any age if he truly wanted to keep the connection alive. Sipping her tea, the elder shared a story from her youth. There was once a woman, Maria, who came to me, weary and uncertain. She spoke of her husband, Juan, and how the flame of their love had dimmed over time. They had drifted apart, tangled, in the mundane, afraid to explore beyond what was familiar. Clara leaned in, listening closely. She had seen this happen to couples she knew. Love that once burned brightly, now reduced to routine conversations about bills, errands, and responsibilities. It wasn't that Maria and Juan didn't love each other, it was that they had forgotten how to show it. I told her, "Maria, love is a dance, not a duty. It is not meant to be rehearsed and predictable. It thrives in spontaneity, in whispers of curiosity, in the courage to explore not just what's visible, but the unseen layers of each other's being." Maria hesitated at first. She had spent so many years believing that love simply faded with time. That warmth was for the young, and that comfort was the best she could hope for now. But deep down, she longed for more. She longed for the days when Juan would look at her like she was still his entire world, when their conversations felt effortless, when emotional closeness wasn't routine, but something alive, something meaningful. With newfound resolve, Maria returned home. But instead of waiting for Juan to change, she decided to change first. That night, instead of asking him about work or their bills, she asked him about his dreams. Instead of simply hugging him goodnight, she held him a little longer, just like she used to. At first, Juan didn't seem to notice. He was used to their routine, their quiet coexistence. But as the days passed, something shifted. He started opening up again, telling her things he hadn't shared in years. He started reaching for her hand when they walked, surprising her with small gestures of affection, laughing at things they had long stopped finding funny. Their love, once burdened by unspoken fears, flourished anew because they chose understanding over silence, emotional closeness over routine. Because Maria realized that love wasn't something you wait for. It's something you create every single day. Clara sat back, letting the story sink in. She had come to Grandma Amalia expecting simple answers, but she was beginning to realize that love was never simple. It wasn't about waiting for the right moment or hoping things would fix themselves. It was about choosing to show up, to try, to keep rediscovering each other, no matter how many years had passed. Grandma Amalia gave Clara a knowing look. "Love, my dear, is not lost with time. It only disappears when we stop looking for it." Grandma Amalia's voice softened as she spoke her final lesson, the one that Clara knew she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Love is not a routine, it's a masterpiece, but only if you dare to paint it every day. She gestured toward the fire where embers glowed beneath the wood. Passion is like this flame. If you tend to it, if you give it air, warmth, and fuel, it will burn for a lifetime. But if you neglect it, if you assume it will stay lit on its own, eventually it fades. Clara nodded, letting the words sink in. How many couples let their fire die out, not because they stopped loving each other, but because they stopped choosing each other? They let the weight of responsibilities, stress, and routine take over, leaving no space for the curiosity, excitement, and appreciation that once brought them together. Attraction is not about youth, it's about energy, Grandma Amalia continued. It's about how you make someone feel in your presence. A woman doesn't fall in love with a man because of how he looks, but because of how he makes her feel. If a man understands this, he will never lose her. She let the words hang in the air for a moment before adding, when a man over 50 looks at his wife with the same admiration he once did, when he listens to her as if she's the most important person in the world, she feels it. When he values her mind, her laughter, her thoughts, she responds. Love isn't just about connection on the surface. It's about making each other feel wanted, needed, and cherished. Clara sat in deep thought. She had always believed that love was something that just happened, that people were either lucky or unlucky in love. But now she saw the truth. Love was a choice, a series of small, intentional actions taken every single day. And the couples who stayed in love, they weren't just lucky. They were willing to keep rediscovering each other, to keep choosing love even when life got busy or difficult. Grandma Amalia reached for Clara's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Never stop seeing your partner. Never stop learning them. Because love, my dear, is not lost with time. It only disappears when we stop looking for it. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, not just from the fire, but from the realization that she had found exactly what she was looking for. She had come seeking answers, but she was leaving with something even greater. The knowledge that love, true love, was in her hands. It was hers to create, to nurture, to protect, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Grandma Amalia looked at Clara one last time, her expression filled with warmth and certainty. It's never too late to revive warmth. It's never too late to understand your partner. And it's never too late to fall in love all over again. She let those words settle between them, knowing that love, at any age, is not about chasing what was lost. It's about building something new. Clara understood now that love doesn't disappear with time. It simply waits for us to reach for it again. Love is a choice, Grandma Amalia said, not a memory. The couples who stay in love are the ones who keep choosing each other, day after day, year after year. Clara felt a wave of understanding rush over her. She had come seeking advice, but what she had found was a truth so simple yet so powerful. Love doesn't fade, it just needs to be nurtured. Now I want to hear from you. What's the one thing that stood out to you the most? Have you ever felt like love was slipping away, only to realize it was still there, waiting for you to reach for it? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful insights on love, relationships, and emotional closeness after 50. And remember, the love you seek is within your reach. It just takes a choice to embrace it again. There's something only mature men truly understand. The kind of pain a woman carries quietly. After 50, she doesn't complain. She doesn't blame. She doesn't cry when you turn your back. But if you've been paying attention, you'd know that's silence. It's not peace, it's a shield. A quiet that was built brick by brick out of disappointment, betrayal, and the kind of loneliness that lingers even when someone's right beside her. After 50, a woman no longer needs grand promises. She doesn't want to be rescued. She just wants to be seen. Not the way she was, but the way she is now. With the scars, with the wisdom, with the quiet strength it took to survive everything she's never spoken out loud. And the man who truly loves her doesn't rush in with solutions. He listens, he stays, he knows her silence is sacred, and that's what only a mature man understands. Not every woman over 50 is sad, but many have quietly grown used to the feeling that no one really listens anymore. They're strong. They're fine. They handle everything, alone. They smile at the right moments, offer support to everyone else, and rarely ask for anything in return. But when the lights go off at night and no one's around, there's a whisper that sometimes comes back, I just wish someone would care enough to truly understand me. It's not that they're fragile, in fact, they've become incredibly resilient. They've weathered loss, disappointment, broken trust, and countless small sacrifices no one ever noticed. And they did it without fanfare. But there's a loneliness that strength can't protect you from, the loneliness of being emotionally unseen. When a woman reaches 50, life doesn't slow down, it shifts. People expect her to have it all figured out, to be the stable one, the caregiver, the wise one. But who cares for her? Who sits long enough to notice when her eyes dim slightly, even while her lips are smiling? Who notices when her silence isn't peace, but fatigue? Not just physical, but soul-deep fatigue from always being the strong one in the room? She doesn't want to explain herself anymore. She just wants someone to look at her and say, you don't have to pretend, I'm here, and I see you. That kind of presence? Rare, but unforgettable. A mature man doesn't try to fix her sadness. He doesn't offer solutions or step in like a rescuer. He doesn't lecture her on how to heal or quote self-help books. And he certainly doesn't make noise just to avoid the silence. He's simply there, present, grounded, like a strong, steady arm, open wide enough for her to lean into, without explanation, without performance, without needing to earn it, because he knows. She doesn't need answers. She needs a safe space to feel everything she's spent years burying. She needs room to fall apart, just a little, without being told to hold it together. She needs to know she won't be judged for feeling heavy or quiet or distant. That she can show her weariness and not lose his affection. Mature men don't feel threatened by a woman's depth. They aren't uncomfortable with her complexity. They don't shrink back when she's not sunny or easy. Instead, they hold space. That sacred kind of space where a woman doesn't have to explain why she's tired, where she can be soft without being taken for weak, where she can be silent and still feel completely connected. It's not about doing anything. It's about being steady, patient, open, because a woman who's lived long enough to survive heartbreak, to rebuild herself again and again, to care for everyone but herself. She doesn't need another man with a plan. She needs a place where she can rest her soul. And a mature man, he becomes that place. I once met a woman named Elaine. She was 64. She had been married for 28 years. And when it ended, not with fireworks but with a slow emotional erosion, she didn't just lose a relationship. She lost the belief that anyone would ever truly see her again. Not because there weren't men interested, but because no one stayed long enough to notice where she hurt. They saw her confidence, her grace, her self-sufficiency, but no one paused long enough to ask, what has she survived? What has she given up to still be standing here until she met a man, not young, not wealthy, not flashy, but deeply attentive? He put his phone down when she spoke. He remembered the little things, the name of her dog, the way she took her tea, the kind of music that made her tear up without knowing why. He never rushed her to move on from her grief, never asked her to smile more when she was tired. He didn't try to lift her mood. He simply honored it, and one evening, sitting together on her back porch in quiet candlelight, she looked at him and said something I'll never forget. For the first time in decades, I feel loved without having to earn it. No performance, no pretending, no pressure to prove she was enough, just love. The kind that sees past what's polished and holds gently what's raw. That's what changed her life, not a new romance, but finally being allowed to rest in someone's presence. Younger men mean well, they try, they bring flowers, they plan surprises. They want to see her laugh, light up, sparkle again. They think she needs excitement. She needs to be reminded she's beautiful. She needs to feel adored. And they're not wrong, not entirely. But what they miss is this. A woman over 50 doesn't need to be dazzled. She needs to be safe. She doesn't need constant entertainment. She needs quiet presence when she goes quiet. Because when a woman turns inward, when she stops talking as much, pulls back ever so slightly or simply gets still, it's not because she's lost interest. It's because something inside her is stirring. Old memories, grief she thought she buried, or a moment of vulnerability too fragile to explain. The younger man often sees her silence as a problem to solve. He starts to feel anxious. He backs away or tries to cheer her up. But the mature man knows that's the moment she needs you the most, not to fix her, not to push her back into brightness, but to not leave, to be the man who stays when she withdraws, to be the calm when she trembles, to say, not with words, but with presence, you don't have to be okay for me to remain. Because when a woman has lived long enough to know that people disappear when she's not easy, the one who stays through her silence is the one she'll trust with her soul. If you're loving a woman who's been hurt, don't ask her what she needs. Don't press her for clarity. Don't try to make it better. Pause, breathe, and listen, not to her words, but to the way her heart protects itself. Her distance is not defiance. It's memory. It's survival. She's not testing you. She's wondering, can I stay soft with this man and still be safe? You don't have to rescue her. You don't have to fix what someone else broke. You just have to be the one who doesn't run, when she's unsure, when she's quiet, when she's not easy to hold, because the mature man doesn't love to possess. He loves to restore. He loves to witness, to support, to hold space for her to rebuild trust in her own timing, not his. That's the kind of love that heals, that lasts, that reaches places no words ever could. If you've ever loved a woman who was still healing and felt helpless when you couldn't make her believe in love again, drop a heart in the comments. You're not alone. You did your best. Sometimes love is not about saving someone, but about sitting beside them in silence while they find their own way back. And if you are that woman, the one who carries invisible weight with grace, who's strong in public but tender in private, who has learned to smile while silently rebuilding herself, know this: I see you. I honor your quiet strength, and I believe in the softness you still carry, even after everything. You are not too much, you are not too broken, you are not behind, you are simply human, with a heart that still wants to believe. If no one has told you lately, you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be held emotionally, gently, without conditions. And sometimes us just knowing that someone understands can be the first step toward healing. You're safe here. There's a kind of safety women crave after heartbreak, and most men don't even see it. But mature men, they feel it. They know it starts not with words, but with presence. She once believed in love, but after too many letdowns, betrayals, and being made to feel small, she's learned to guard herself even when her heart still wants to be open. At this stage of life, a woman doesn't need someone who gives her butterflies. She needs someone who makes her nervous system relax. Someone who makes her feel safe, not just loved. Because after 50, love isn't about sparks anymore. It's about sanctuary. And only a truly mature man understands this. He's not chasing chemistry, he's cultivating trust. In this video, we'll explore what mature men know about making her feel safe again, and why safety isn't soft. It's the foundation for every lasting kind of intimacy. Safety in love doesn't mean avoiding pain. It doesn't mean building walls so high that nothing can touch you. Real safety, the kind that matters after 50, is the choice to risk being hurt again because someone has shown you with quiet consistency that they can be trusted with your tenderness. For a woman who's lived through heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, abandonment, safety isn't a luxury. It's oxygen. And yet, she's not asking to be protected from the world. She doesn't need someone to save her. She's already survived more than most people know. What she needs is someone who won't make her inner world more fragile. Someone who doesn't add to the noise, the tension, the emotional chaos she's spent years learning to manage. She needs someone who doesn't trigger her old wounds, but gently reminds her that peace is still possible. Safety to her looks like a calm voice when she's overwhelmed, a soft presence when she pulls back, a man who doesn't flinch when she shows her fears, and most of all, someone who stays, not because she's perfect, but because he sees her worth even when she doubts it herself, because safety is not the absence of risk. It's the presence of someone who's gentle with your fear. And when a woman over 50 finds that, she doesn't just open up, she softens in a way she thought she never could again. You'll notice it, but only if you're paying attention. She doesn't share how she really feels, not because she's secretive, but because experience has taught her that vulnerability often comes with a cost. She always says she's fine. She smiles through discomfort. She seems strong, even unshakable. But the strength you're seeing, it's not freedom, it's a shell. You'll hear it in the way she answers with politeness, not openness. You'll see it in her eyes. Present, but distant. Engaged, but guarded. She might still show up, still be kind, still go through the motions, but something in her feels absent, like she's walking beside you, but no longer with you. That's not disconnection. That's not indifference. It's self-protection. It's what happens when a woman has been asked to give too much for too long, without being met with the same depth in return. Many men misread this. They assume she's pulling away. They take it as rejection. They grow frustrated or insecure, thinking she doesn't care anymore. But the truth is, she cares enough to stay present. Even while part of her doesn't feel safe enough to open, she's not cold. She's cautious. And under that caution is a heart still hoping someone will stay long enough to earn back her softness without demanding it. Because when a woman no longer feels emotionally safe, she doesn't make a scene. She makes distance, and it takes a mature man to recognize the difference. He doesn't ask, "What's wrong with you?" He doesn't press for answers she's not ready to give. Instead, he gently says, "Is there anything I can do to help you feel more at ease?" It's not a line. It's a posture, a quiet way of saying, "You don't owe me an explanation, but I'm here if you want to lean." He doesn't rush to fix her feelings. He doesn't toss around solutions like band-aids. He doesn't see her emotions as something to manage. He sees them as something to respect, and he stays. Long enough for her guard to relax, for her silence to feel safe, for her wounds to begin healing on their own, without pressure, without performance. Younger men often view emotions as messy. They get uncomfortable, impatient. They see complexity and call it too much. They pull away when things aren't light or easy, but the mature man, he understands that emotion is not chaos. It's a doorway. A doorway into real connection. A chance to see her not just in her light but in her shadow and stay. He knows that intimacy isn't built during laughter and fun. It's built in the moments when she doesn't have the energy to shine, but he chooses to stay close anyway, because for him, love isn't about fixing her. It's about creating the kind of space where she no longer has to fix herself just to feel worthy of staying. There was a man named Jack. He was 58, and he fell in love with a widow. She had been through more loss than most could imagine. Not just the loss of her husband, but the quiet, ongoing loss of herself. While trying to hold everything together, for the first 2 years she never once said, "I love you." Not because she didn't care, but because saying those words felt like handing someone the last unguarded piece of her heart. And she wasn't. Sure, anyone could hold it without dropping it again. But Jack didn't walk away. He didn't make demands. He didn't rush her healing. He didn't count the months and measure his worth by her words. He simply said, "I don't love you to get something back. I love you to show you that there are still men who know how to stay. Men who don't pressure, don't push, and don't add to the pain you're already carrying." And on their 3rd year together, they sat on the couch one quiet evening. No music, no plans, just a stillness between them. She placed her hand over his chest, looked him in the eyes and whispered, "I feel safe here." Jack cried, not because she finally loved him back, but because she finally let herself be loved. That was all he ever wanted, to be the man she didn't have to fight for, to be the place where she could finally put her armor down. Closeness isn't about touch. It's not about chemistry. It doesn't begin behind closed doors. It begins in the moments in between, in the quiet, raw, unguarded spaces where she shows you parts of herself she's never been sure were lovable. It's the way you listen to her, without rushing in with advice, without trying to fix, without looking away when her voice trembles. It's the way you let her cry, not because you did something wrong, but because something old resurfaced, and instead of trying to cheer her up, you just hold the silence and let her know you're not going anywhere. It's in how you hold her hand, and not to guide her, not to pull her closer, but to simply say, "I'm with you, exactly as you are." Real connect. On after 50 has very little to do with performance, and everything to do with presence, with being the man who doesn't turn away when her emotions show up unannounced. The man who doesn't mistake her vulnerability for weakness, or her hesitation for rejection. Because to a woman who's lived through pain, your patience is more seductive than your touch. Your steadiness builds more connection than words. And your ability to stay, when she doesn't have it all together, is what makes her feel safe enough to truly let you in. After 50, intimacy isn't about removing barriers. It's about taking off fear. If she's ever gone silent in your arms, if she's ever held her lips tightly together instead of asking, "Do you really mean it?" If she's ever taken a step back just as you were reaching forward, please understand she's not distant. She just hasn't felt safe enough, and yet. A woman who's been through heartbreak doesn't stop believing in love. She just starts protecting herself from it. And what feels like hesitation to you might be the most courage she can offer right now. Don't take her retreat as rejection. Don't rush her forward, and please, don't walk away just because she didn't run toward you. The mature man doesn't love to win. He doesn't love to conquer. He loves to restore, to be a quiet shelter. To be the place where she doesn't have to smile if she's tired, doesn't have to explain why she needs space, doesn't have to pretend to be low maintenance just to be loved. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, and the most healing thing you can do is stay. There's a kind of intimacy women long for after 50, and most men miss it completely. It's not about touch, it's about how safe her heart feels in your presence. She's heard "I love you" 100 times before, but only remembers the one man who made her feel loved, without ever needing to ask, without needing him to prove it. After 50, women don't crave romance in roses or poetry. They crave invisible safety, the kind you feel in someone's presence, where you can be fully seen, fully heard, and fully known without having to explain yourself. And that kind of connection, it's not chemistry, it's not seduction. It's something deeper, emotional intimacy. In this video, we explore what mature men understand about the kind of intimacy women truly long for, and why love, after 50, isn't about fireworks. It's about feeling safe enough to let the fire burn slow. Real love, especially for a woman who's lived through life, doesn't come from someone holding her hand in public. It comes from someone who can hold her emotions even when she doesn't have the words to explain them. It's not the touch that moves her. It's the energy behind the touch. It's the way he notices when her shoulders slump, when her voice softens, when her eyes look far away. Not because she's distracted, but because a memory just quietly resurfaced. It's the gentle glance he gives her when she's tired, that says, "You don't have to perform." It's the space he gives her in silence, not because he's distant, but because he knows she needs room to just be. It's the slow nod when she shares something from years ago, something she never meant to say out loud, and his only response is, "I'm glad you told me." That is intimacy, not fireworks, not grand gestures, not adrenaline, but presence, understanding, emotional steadiness. You see, love after 50 doesn't ask, "How can I impress her?" It asks, "How can I hold her even when nothing is said?" Because the truth is, many women over 50 don't want to be touched first. They want to be felt, and a mature man knows it's not the hand you reach for in public. It's the feeling you give her when no one's watching that she'll remember most. Many younger men confuse intimacy with physical closeness. They think if they hold her hand, kiss her deeply, or touch her the right way, she'll feel loved. But mature men, they know better. They know that if she doesn't feel emotionally safe, then even the softest touch can make her pull away. Because for a woman who's been through heartache, whose heart still carries stories she rarely tells, emotional connection matters more than anything physical. True connection is subtle, quiet. It lives in how you show up, not what you do. It's the way you let her speak without interrupting. It's how you remember the small things she said in passing, like how she sleeps better when it rains, or the song that reminds her of her father. It's the warm look you give her when she shares something that clearly cost her courage to say. Not the kind of look that says, "I'm impressed," but the one that says, "You're safe here." And most of all, it's staying when she's not easy to understand, staying when her emotions are messy, staying when she goes quiet, not out of disinterest, but because she's feeling more than she knows how to explain. Emotional connection isn't about always knowing what to say. It's about not leaving when she's most afraid you might. Because when a woman feels emotionally held, she begins to trust her body again, and when she feels safe in her soul, everything else opens. Naturally, gently, without force. Miriam was 63 when she said something I'll never forget. "I didn't fall in love with him because he told me he loved me. I fell in love with him because of what he did when I went quiet." She didn't mean dramatic silence. She meant those quiet dips, when the world felt heavy, when emotions rose without form, when she just needed a moment to be, without explaining why. She told me, "He didn't rush to ask, 'Are you okay?' He didn't fill the space with questions. He simply reached for my hand and then let me be silent, beside someone who didn't treat my silence like a problem." That's when she knew. She didn't have to shrink her emotions just to keep the peace. She didn't have to perform well to feel loved. She didn't have to fill every moment with lightness to stay desirable. She was loved even in stillness, especially in stillness, and that changed everything. Because the men before him, they wanted her to explain, to smile, to bounce back quickly, to stay fun. But this man, he didn't flinch when she didn't sparkle. He didn't panic when she grew quiet. He simply stayed, hand in hand. Present, without fixing, without fear. And in that presence she felt something far rarer than romance. She felt safe enough to be real. That's when love becomes something more than words. That's when love becomes home. By the time she reaches 50, a woman has likely lived through relationships that sounded perfect on paper, but felt hollow in real life. She's heard beautiful words. She's been promised forever. But over time, she learned that some men say the right things and do very little. She's experienced intimacy without connection, men who touched her body, but never truly reached her heart. That's why she doesn't open up easily anymore, not because she's cold, but because she's learned the difference between attention and intention. She listens with her intuition now. She feels the energy behind your presence, and she notices everything, especially when something feels off. She doesn't need you to say the right thing. She needs to feel that your silence isn't hiding something, but holding space. She only begins to trust when she knows she won't be judged for her rawness. She sees that you're listening, as not out of politeness, but from presence. She realizes she can show her emotions without being labeled too much or too sensitive when a man allows her to be soft without consequence, to express sadness without being told to cheer up, to be emotional without being dismissed. That's when she starts to breathe differently. That's when she feels seen and not just admired, because for a woman over 50, words are easy. Safety is rare, and emotional fluency, that's the only language her heart responds to now. She doesn't need a perfect man. She's not looking for flawless charm or textbook romance. What she needs is a man attuned enough to know that, when she says, "I'm fine," sometimes what she really means is, "Please don't walk away." That's not manipulation. That's experience wrapped in caution. It's a woman who's learned to downplay her needs because past relationships taught her they were too much. She doesn't want a man who reacts. She wants one who responds with calm presence, who doesn't match her emotions with discomfort, but meets them with grounding. A man who doesn't get overwhelmed by her waves, but becomes the shore she can lean into. He doesn't talk over her feelings. He doesn't dismiss her tears. He doesn't panic when she breaks down for reasons even she can't explain. He just stays, not with advice, not with solutions, but with the kind of steady attention that says, "You're not too much. You're just human, and I'm not going anywhere." Because emotional connection, real, present, non-defensive connection, is what turns "this feels good" into "this feels like home." That's what lasts. Not the chase, not the butterflies, but the feeling of being seen, heard, and held without needing to be perfect first. And that's what mature men know. That love isn't built in the highs. It's built in how you hold each other when things get quiet. You want her to love you forever. Don't chase the big gestures. Don't wait for the perfect words. Make her feel loved, even in silence. Not with flowers, not with expensive gifts, but with the kind of presence that makes her heart stop bracing for impact. The kind of love that doesn't ask her to perform, or stay cheerful, or always be easy to understand. The kind of love that lets her exhale, because she finally knows, "I'm safe here. I'm still loved, even when I'm quiet." That's when her walls come down. Not all at once. Not with fireworks, but gently, slowly, because you stayed. And when a woman over 50 lets her guard down, it's not a small moment, it's a homecoming. Some women no longer fear being alone. What they fear, it is being hurt again by someone who promised to stay. Loving a woman who's been broken isn't about saying the right thing. It's about becoming the one she doesn't have to protect herself from. Some women no longer believe in love, not because they don't want it, but because love is what shattered them in the first place. It wasn't a clean break. It was slow, silent, a long stretch of being unseen, unheard, untouched, until one day they just stopped reaching. And when you fall for a woman like that, you're not just loving a person, you're stepping into a place that's still healing, A place where trust has to be rebuilt from the ground up, not with promises, but with presence. This kind of woman doesn't need saving. She doesn't need convincing. She needs to feel something she hasn't felt in a very long time, safe enough to love again. In this video, we'll explore what mature men know about loving a woman who's been hurt, and why the most powerful way to love her is to never rush her healing. You text her. She sees it, but doesn't reply. You ask how she's doing. She smiles, nods and says, "I'm fine," you try to get closer. She steps back and you wonder, is she losing interest? Did I do something wrong? But here's what most men don't understand. When a woman has been hurt deeply, she doesn't stop feeling. She just stops showing it. She's not cold, she's cautious. She once opened up too fast, and it cost her. So now she protects her heart by staying one step behind her own emotions. She wants to trust. She wants to lean in, but she's also asking herself, will he disappear if I don't give him what he wants right away? So she gives you politeness instead of openness, distance instead of drama. She pulls away, not because she doesn't feel something, but because she feels everything and too deeply, and it scares her. The mistake most men make? They take her silence as disinterest and leave. But the man who truly sees her, the mature man, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't chase, he doesn't walk away. He stays steady. He gives her space. He lets her know without pressure that she can come forward when she's ready. And when she finally does, she doesn't just give him her attention. She gives him her trust. The wounds that hurt the most are the ones you'll never see, the ones she doesn't talk about, the ones that don't show up as tears or outbursts, but in the way she holds back joy, the way she changes the subject when things get too real, the way she smiles even when her eyes look tired. A woman who's been hurt doesn't need you to make her laugh. She doesn't need you to pull her out of the dark. She needs to know you won't leave just because she hasn't opened up yet. She needs someone who can sit beside her silence and not take it personally. She's not testing you. She's protecting herself, because last time she opened too quickly, and it cost her pieces of herself she's still gathering back. Loving her means accepting that trust might come slowly, that affection might come in quiet waves, not fireworks, that she may give you presents long before she gives you her heart, and that's not weakness, that's healing. The mature man understands this. He knows that the best things in life, than ripe fruit, strong trees, deep love, they all take time. He's not in a rush, because he's not loving to get something. He's loving to create something, something safe, something steady, something real. And when she finally feels that, she won't just come closer, she'll come home. I once met a man named David. He was 62. He had fallen for a woman who was a widow. But long before she lost her husband, she had already lost her faith in love, because before he passed, he had betrayed her, not just once, but in the slow, cutting way that makes you question your worth, even in a marriage that looks intact from the outside. So when David met her, she was warm, but distant, kind, but cautious, always polite, always composed, but never quite open. 3 months went by, no hug, no casual touch, no chemistry in the usual sense. 6 months, just quiet walks in the park. Conversations about the weather, her dog, maybe a book she liked. Nothing deeper, nothing risky, but David was never pushed, never asked, "Where is this going?" Never waited for her to give back. He didn't need her affection to prove. He was lovable. He already knew who he was, and that gave him the patience to wait for her walls to come down, in her time, not his. And in their second year together, one day during an ordinary walk, she reached over and gently took his hand. No words, no ceremony, just a quiet moment, not because she felt obligated, not because it had been long enough, but because in her heart she had finally come to believe, this man won't hurt me. And that moment meant more to David than any "I love you" ever could, because she didn't just hold his hand, she handed him her trust. The mature man knows not every step back means rejection. Not every silence is distance. Not every pause in affection means she's stopped caring. Sometimes she's just catching her breath. Sometimes she's feeling everything, too deeply to put into words. And sometimes she's testing the ground beneath her, wondering if it's safe to place both feet down. The younger man takes it personally. He panics when she grows quiet. He questions her love, her interest, her motives. But the mature man, he understands that love isn't always loud. It doesn't always move fast. It doesn't always arrive wrapped in certainty. He knows that love, after heartbreak, is often whispered, not declared. And that true connection doesn't need constant validation, just presence. So when she retreats into herself, he doesn't chase, he doesn't pressure, he doesn't demand answers she's not ready to give. He just sits beside her, quietly, gently, without needing her to explain anything. And in his stillness, she hears the one thing her heart has longed for most. I'm not leaving. That's what the mature man offers. Not fireworks, but consistency. Not a love that tries to impress, but one that knows how to stay through the quiet seasons. Because sometimes, loving a woman who's been hurt means sitting beside her pain and saying nothing at all. Accept everything, through the way you stayed. So what do you do when you love a woman who's been hurt? What do you say when her trust has been fractured and her heart, though open, still flinches? Start here. Don't ask, "Are you okay?" Ask instead, "Do you need me to stay with you right now?" Because sometimes she doesn't want to talk, she just wants to feel safe in your presence. Don't list what you've done for her. Don't say, "I've always been good to you." Instead ask, "Have I done anything, even unknowingly, that made you feel unsafe?" That question alone can build more trust than 100 reassurances. It shows self-awareness. It shows maturity. It shows you care more about her comfort than your pride. Don't try to move the relationship forward too fast. The timeline in your head is not more important than the timeline of her healing. Let time walk with you both. Not to rush, but to reveal what's real. Because women who've been hurt don't open because you demand it. They open because you prove over and over that they're safe to do so. So slow down. Lean in. Listen with your presence, not your replies. Sometimes the strongest way to love a healing woman is to offer her the one thing she never received in the past. Patience without pressure. Commitment without control. Love without a deadline. A woman who's been broken doesn't need to be rescued. She doesn't need a hero, a fixer, or someone to pull her out of the dark. She needs someone who's strong enough to simply walk beside her while she learns how to stand again. No rush. No pressure. No need to be enough to earn love. Just a quiet kind of presence that says, "You're safe. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." The mature man doesn't love to win. He doesn't love to conquer. He loves to heal. He shows up not to impress, but to make her feel seen, steady and supported, not with noise but with presence. Because the deepest kind of love isn't about being the one who fixes her. It's about being the one who doesn't flinch when she's not yet whole. What mature men know about aging beauty? She stood in front of the mirror, quietly adjusting the collar of her blouse. Not for anyone else, just herself. The woman staring back at her had laugh lines where smooth skin used to be. A softer jawline. Eyes that held more stories than sparkle, and for a brief second she wondered, do I still have that glow? But what she didn't know was that across town, a man her age, a man who had lived, lost, and learned, was thinking of her. Not because of how flawless she looked, but because of how safe he felt in her presence. Because when she smiled, it wasn't to impress. It was to welcome, to connect, to simply be. This video is about that kind of beauty, the kind younger eyes might overlook, but mature men never forget. He no longer chases the illusion of forever young. He's seen too much, lost too much. And what draws him now isn't a tight waistline or wrinkle-free skin. It's presence, it's peace. It's the way she walks into a room without needing the room to applaud. What captivates him is the look in her eyes, eyes that have seen grief, joy, growth, and still choose kindness. He notices her smile, not because it's flawless, but because it carries gratitude for what's left, not regret for what's gone. She doesn't wear beauty like an armor anymore. She wears it like a quiet truth, no longer trying to be admired. She simply is, and that's what makes her unforgettable. To a mature man, she's not beautiful because she tries, but because she has lived. Fully, honestly. She has been broken and rebuilt. She has cried in silence and laughed without reason. And she now holds herself with the kind of grace that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. She is not chasing youth. She's embodying freedom. And in doing so, she becomes the kind of beautiful that doesn't fade. It settles deeper. This is what he sees. Not age, not used to be, but a woman who's real. And real is rare. She doesn't chase lipstick, trends anymore. She no longer flips through magazines asking, should I cut my hair like this? Because the woman she is today doesn't ask the mirror if she's beautiful. She lets the room feel it. When she walks in, it's not her heels that speak, it's her energy, calm, unapologetic, grounded. She's not asking to be seen. She's already rooted in herself. You won't hear her fishing for compliments or asking, do I look okay in this? Because she already knows who she is, and she no longer needs validation to feel radiant. This kind of beauty doesn't come in a bottle. It doesn't require filters or touch-ups. It comes from seasons, from losses survived, from loving deeply, and not becoming bitter when it ended. It's the kind of beauty time creates in women who didn't let life harden them. You can't rush this beauty. You can't fake it. You can't manufacture it on Instagram because it's not just how she looks. It's how she makes others feel when she's near. It's the quiet dignity, the emotional presence, the kindness, without effort. And here's the secret. Men who've lived long enough and they don't miss it. They feel it the moment she walks in. Elliot was 59, recently divorced, slightly jaded. He'd spent most of his adult life believing beauty was obvious. Smooth skin, bright lips, a confident sway in a summer dress. I thought I knew what I liked, he said. Young, energetic, sexy. But then he met her. She was 65. And everything changed. She didn't flirt. She didn't command the room. She just smiled. For the first time in my life, Elliot told me, I found myself listening to a smile instead of just looking at it. He couldn't quite explain it, but her presence made the world quieter. Not dull, just softer. She didn't speak much at dinner, but when she did, and it was never to fill silence. It was to share something that mattered. And when she looked at him, he felt seen in a way that didn't make him want to impress, but simply to be honest. Her eyes weren't dazzling, he said, but they lit something in me. It wasn't youthful sparkle, it was warmth, safety, depth. She wasn't trying to be stunning, she just was. And Elliot realized he hadn't fallen for how she looked. He'd fallen for how he felt in her presence, not excited, not turned on, but deeply, inexplicably at peace. That's when he understood. Real beauty isn't loud. It's quiet and unforgettable. He doesn't compare her to who she used to be. He doesn't measure her body against the past or wonder if her figure was tighter, her hair thicker, her face smoother, because to him, she's not a before and after. She's a becoming. He sees a woman who has endured more than she's ever said aloud, and still chose to be soft, still chose to be kind. He sees her ability to laugh, not because life was always funny, but because she refused to let pain steal her joy. He notices how she holds space in conversation, not to dominate, but to understand, not to prove, but to connect. She doesn't hide her scars, one man said. She just wears them differently, like quiet medals of a life she didn't run from. To a mature man, that's the rarest kind of beauty. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't compete, doesn't need approval. It's a beauty that has grieved and healed, that has let go and still believes, that has bent but never broken. She may not walk like she used to, but her strength? You can feel it across the room, and the most powerful thing he sees in her isn't youth regained, it's courage retained, because the truth is, she didn't grow older and fade. She grew older and revealed, and that's breathtaking. If you found yourself avoiding mirrors lately, if you've stood in front of one and whispered, What happened to me? If your hands search your skin for youth and only find softness where firmness used to live. If your silver hairs feel more like reminders than badges, this is for you. You may think your beauty is behind you, that your glow has dimmed, that men no longer look twice, that your value somehow lessened with the years. But let me tell you, something no one ever says loud enough. Real beauty doesn't make people gasp at first sight. It makes them pause, then return, then look deeper the second time, because it's not loud, it's not flashy, it's felt. And the right man, the kind who's lived enough to understand real value, will not just see your beauty, he'll recognize it. Like a familiar warmth he didn't know he missed. You don't need to chase what's gone. You don't need to undo time. You need only to return to yourself, gently, truthfully, because the kind of beauty you carry now